let's talk a bit about what's happening in the public markets, right? I mean, the US markets until sort of the last week or so have actually done really well. In the last 6 months, they were up, 30+%, right? So, the question for investors out there, I mean, where should we focus on? Should we just sort of focus on the public markets for now and just leave private markets? What's your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing is that obviously it's great that public markets have done well, and it's kind of strange at some point to a lot of people because actually the economy is kind of on a down, right, because of COVID, but the market's done really well, especially in the U.S. And a big driver is that the market in the U.S. is very tech heavy, and tech has actually been shining in this whole crisis. I mean, imagine if this had happened and we didn't have the internet or all these services, it would be a lot harder. So tech's really shining, and there's some reason for how well they're doing. Having said that, I think there is awareness that now how far can this go? And I actually think that there's going to be a reallocation, from the listed stuff that's done very well and looking for more private opportunities. So basically at a larger scale for investors or, large like pension funds, things like that, reallocating out of public and into private equity funds, VC funds, all things like that, which will, put capital over there. Or maybe they feel like they can kind of negotiate their own valuations. They don't just take what's in the market.
Well, I guess also a strong public markets bodes well for any exit at the moment. There seems to be a huge vote for public market exits. Well, going on to the next one, I mean, what do you think is the one trend that will continue to boost or benefit tech companies, even post-COVID, right? I mean, we talk about COVID really boosting or as you said, pushing them up the ramp. But what do you think, that you see post-COVID that will continue to, make this or have tech companies be the focus of investments?
Yeah, so I think there's this old internet bubble quote, I think Mark Andreessen, something like software is eating the world or will eat the world or something like that. I think, but it's very apt because I think the trend that doesn't change is that it's almost like, more and more industries become software industries, essentially. So software used to be this really niche thing. And now more and more industries, it's almost like if there isn't software, it's like you're not really doing your business properly. So I think one thing that doesn't change is that software just expands and it starts becoming the key competitive advantage in newer or more and more industries. And eventually it's almost like every industry, if it doesn't have a software edge, you're not going to make it, So I think that's an interesting space always to look at is where is the latest traditional industry that's now going to be eaten by software? For me, I was saying, I'm a big believer, it's digital banking, but I think looking for where that is, and that never changes because it's software just expands, the cost of it reduces, there's more innovation. So new use cases software is used for to go digitize things that we did traditionally without it.
Yeah, well, I mean, with that, I mean, does that and perhaps you can comment on this, what we saw and again, you mentioned this, is that technology companies actually very quickly pivoted during this pandemic. And do you, obviously, what are your observations around that, further observations around that? Again, it's presumably a confluence of software, but also are there other things that are at play here for companies to very quickly pivot?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, this whole situation has really, I think, force companies to, just to rethink everything. And ultimately, traditionally, tech companies have been the ones that have just been really fast moving, but there's no reason why, traditional companies can become fast moving. So I think it's just that the business cycle has accelerated for a lot of industries where before they didn't have such a fast business cycle. So I think it's just a matter of who can adapt to that. But I think it'll persist. I think once you change these things, I think it won't be like companies will suddenly, undigitize themselves and slow down their cycles again. I think it's kind of force a lot of industries to really think hard about what they're actually doing. Yeah.